Hello everyone, it's Kenneth from the archives here with another video dipping into our collections and having a look at the history of Dundee. Today I'm going to be looking at one particular photograph to see what it tells us about how the university's changed over the years. And the photograph I'm going to be looking at is this one. It's a view of the university campus taken in 1969. So 2 years after the university gained university status. And from a glance, you can see there's an awful lot that's familiar and still there today, but there's also an awful lot that has changed. So I thought we would zoom in and look at some of the bits of the photographs and have a look at some of the changes. We start off down in the bottom corner of the picture. We immediately see some familiar sights, the Tower building, the Dental Tower, the old medical school, to name just a few. There are some things that are different. Now, if we look at what is now the Scrimgeour building and what was then still the home of Dundee College of Education, just to the south of that, we can see there's a gap and there's a car park there. Well, this is where the old school building that stood there had been demolished. That had been the original Harris Academy. Then in the 1930s, when Harris moved along the Perth Road, it had become home to St John's. They, by this point, had moved out, and the building and the house next to it had been flattened. And what would be built here a few years later was the Bonner Hall. Now, if we move along from that car park towards Tay Square, you see another gap, and that is where in the late 1970s work would start on building what would become the new home of Dundee Repertory Theatre, which of course is still there to this day. Now, over in the top left of this bit, you see another car park, and next to that is another building that's gone, New Dines, which I talked about in a previous video. And both New Dines and that car park have been replaced by the University Library, which went up in the 1980s. Of course, when this photograph was taken, the library was still located in the Tower building. If we move a little bit along Perth Road, we can see an area that was just about to undergo a big change when this photograph was taken. And the street in the middle there you will recognise as Airlie Place, the bottom bit of which is still there. But the top bit of Airlie Place and the big Airlie Terrace at the top of Airlie Place was about to be demolished because this was earmarked to be the new home of the Students' Association. And what we call today the Jusa building would be built here. Now, it was cleared later in 1969. Work would actually start on the building in 1971, although it would be later in the 1970s before it opened. So that's one big change we can see there. Also, if you look at Duncan of Johnson College of Art there, only one of its buildings is there, the Crawford building. The building that's next to the Crawford, which was originally known as the Extension and now of course is known as the Matthew building, was yet to be built. And that's even more clear in this next photograph. You can also see in that photograph two houses, here and here. Now, they were both at various times known as Hawkhill House. The one on the right here is still there and is the home to our museum services. The one on the left would be demolished when the Matthew building was built. It had actually been used for a while by the designers during the planning stage of Nine Wells Hospital. The big building you can see that's still going up at this time here is the Medical Sciences Institute. Work on that had started in 1967. Now, it wasn't completed as originally intended, partly because of money cuts. But if you know it today, it's much bigger and part of a much bigger complex. Because in the 1990s, the Wellcome Trust building would be added on along with other bits. And today, this is one of the biggest and most modern university buildings. If we go to the north of the campus, we can see there's still an awful lot of housing and industry on Hawk Hill and the area around the West Port, which just disappears off the picture. Now, this, of course, would be radically rebuilt in the 70s and 80s. Many of the buildings you see here would be demolished, and we would get new buildings. So, for example, the Dalhousie building appeared in the 2000s on Hunter Street, with the buildings there being long gone. The university sports complex would be built here. Heathfield residences would be built here. So that's an area that has really greatly changed and is probably the greatest change in the photograph. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at how the university campus looked in the late 60s, and I hope you've enjoyed that and it's maybe brought back some memories. In the meantime, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk again.